Hello everyone and welcome back. Jean Umberto here. How did you do in the previous exercise? I hope you did well, and if you did not, do not worry. In this video I'm going to write the solution so you can actually work along with me. Okay, so first of all we need to look at the questions and understand exactly what was required. The first thing was to look at the code and fill in the missing part. Of course, that is the object or element which have no IDs. So I'll go straight to the code here, and you can see that we have uname, which is an ID assigned to the ID attribute, of course, of the input here, and that's going to be for the username. But if you move down to the CD name, we can see that we have no ID value here, so we need to fill in this part. And if you look at the password, it is the same issue. We don't have any value here because this attribute ID does not have any values, so you're going to fill this part as well. But if you look at the select here for the province, we do have an ID which is prov, so we're going to leave it alone. And so are we going to do here for the ID BTN? We're going to leave it alone because it has a value. So let me start writing the solution. So the first thing is to give an ID to CD name, and I will simply call this CDN. So that's going to be the ID for the city input field, and for the password I'll simply say passw. That is going to be the ID for the password. I'll go ahead and save. So that first problem has been solved. The second problem is right here. When the page loads, we need to add a school name inside the div with ID school name. Of course, that is this div here. You can see it has an ID and the value is school name. So when the page loads, we need to add or insert some content right in here. So I'll go back to my Scratchpad, and as you can see, I have this file created, exercise.js, which of course is connected to the exercise.html file, and you can see it right here. So that basically means that if we go to the folder where we are working, that is in the setting and getting content, you will see that we also have an HTML file which is named exercise.html and a JavaScript file named exercise.js. We can go ahead and verify that here, and you can see that inside the setting and getting content folder we have that exercise.html file and the exercise.javascript or JS file. And if I run this for now, just going to run it, you'll see absolutely no school name, of course, because we haven't answered to that question. But of course, these are the fields that we have written here. So you have the username right here, the CD name, a password, the province, and then the combo box right there. Okay, so the user can enter their name, city name, they can actually enter a password and select the province from which they come. Okay, so now back to the exercise. When the page loads, we need to insert some content inside the div with ID, school name, and we're just going to write any school inside that div. So back to Scratchpad here, where I have created the exercise.js file, I need to listen to the onload event of the window object, and when that happens, I'm just going to call an anonymous function. And what I want to say here is basically, first of all, I will create a variable that I'm just going to call school, which will take the reference to an element with the ID school name. Of course, you have to make sure that the value here matches the value that you have right here. Okay, and now what I want to do is to simply say school.innerHTML, and I'm just gonna say UNISA, but you can actually write any school that crosses your mind. So I'll say save here, and I'll go back to Chrome. I'm gonna refresh this page, and now you can see that we have UNISA right here. So that is the first question that has been answered. The second thing to be done is, of course, to listen to the button event, and that is when the user clicks the button, we want to show each value entered or selected by the user inside the console. So that is what we need to do right now. So we'll go straight to Scratchpad, and what we need to do here is basically create a reference to that button to which we of course want to listen. So I'll just say button. That's a variable that I'm creating, which is going to reference the button on the page. And I'll say the same thing again. I will use the document object and the get element by ID method, and I'll pass in a string value that is the ID value of the button, and I'll come at the end and just end my statement right there. So the next thing is to now listen to that click event on the button. So I'll say button dot add. I just want to add an event listener here, and the event listener is going to be of type click, and I can go ahead and create a function outside this main function. However, I just want to make it short and actually create an anonymous function here. So this anonymous function will be called, okay, and this is going to be the end of the function, of course. And what I want to do here is basically collect everything that the user has typed right inside these fields. Okay, so the first thing is to get the value from the username, and that means I need to create a reference to that. Again, I'll say var uname, and that's going to be document dot get element by ID, and that's going to be uname. So this uname is of course the value that I've assigned, that I've given to this input, that is the username input field uname, and that's what I'm using right here. And the second thing is to create a variable that is going to reference the city name, and I'll actually call it city name in full, and I'll say it's going to be document dot get element by ID, and now I need to check the ID that I've given there. It is CTN, so I need to write it exactly that way. So I'm just gonna paste it in there. Okay, so the third thing is of course a variable that's going to be a reference to the password field, and I'll just say pass, and I'll say document the get element by ID, and that's going to be pass w, which of course is the value of the ID here. And I need to create one last reference variable, and that's going to be for the province. So I'll go back in there and I'll say var, and I'll write province in full. I'll say this is going to be document dot get element by ID, and of course the ID is prov. So I'll go ahead and save this file. So now I'm sure that I've done justice to that question. So the only thing is now when the user clicks the button, we need to see that whatever information they've typed inside the console, that means we are going to use the Mozilla Web Console. So now how do we access the console? We're just going to say console.log. So the first thing we'll say console and then .log, and it expects a string value. So what I want to say first is to say username is, and I will concatenate there. That's going to be a string, and I'm going to concatenate with the value that we're going to get, and that value is going to come from this object. Notice that this variable is now of type object because it makes a reference to an object, an HTML object. So I'll say I'm going to first log the value of the username, which is going to be uname, that is the variable uname dot value. Okay, so notice, because this is a form element, I'm not saying uname dot inner HTML. No, I'm saying uname dot value. And I'll go ahead and end the statement, and I will continue doing the same thing here. I'll say console.log, and I'll say user city. That's going to be the city is, and again I'm just going to concatenate there, and I will now make a reference to this variable, which is city name. So I'll say city name dot value. Okay, and I will now make a reference to the password, and again I'll say console.log, I'll say user passcode as a password, and I'll simply say is pass and value. And last but not least, I'll say console.log, and now this is going to be the province, user province. And now I'm just gonna say it's gonna come from the province dot value. Okay, so that's basically the end of the solution, and all that is left is to go ahead and test this solution. So I'll go ahead and save, and because I want to test it in Mozilla Firefox, I need to go back to the folder where I kept everything, and now I need to open this file using Mozilla, and that is possible by simply going straight here and say open with Mozilla, or I can just right click on the file here and say open with Firefox. Okay, so here I am. That is the file that I've just opened, and what I want to do is basically start typing. I'll go ahead here and start typing. I'll say James Bond, and I'll say from the city of Pretoria, and I'll put in a very easy password, and here I'll say select one, that is for the province. I'll simply select Gauteng. And so now what I want to do is basically open the console so that I can check when the user clicks. I want to see whatever value we collected from this form. So there are two ways to access the console. You can go to the menu here, go to developer tool, and open the web console, okay, which gives you this window here for the console. Or you can basically just right click on that page, on that screen, and say inspect element, or element inspection. Just go to inspect element here, which of course is going to take you to the inspection tab, but next to the inspection tab you can see that you have the console right here. Okay, so either way you'll be taken to this window. So I'm going to leave the console right there so that I see what is happening. And now if I click here, it's going to take this up a little bit. If I click me here, you can now see it says username is James Bond, user city is Pretoria, user passcode is 1234 up to 9, and then user province is GP there. Okay, so I'm just going to go and empty the console, and I want to change these values. So now I want to say here Maria, and I'll say Magdalena, and this time I'll say Cape Town. Okay, so it's going to be Cape Town, and I'll just put another password here, and I'll select the province Eastern Cape there. And now if I click this button again, you can see it says username is Maria Magdalena, user city is Cape Town, user password, that is a password, and then the user province is EC. Notice that we are getting these values here that we have assigned here. For example, MP, EC, LP, KZN. Instead of getting the full name, we are actually getting the actual value that we have passed, or that we have assigned to these actual province name. And of course, one more thing that you might ask yourself, why are we actually getting these symbols around the value? That is basically because once I took this code to PowerPoint and get it back from there, these strings here, okay, you can see now that these are actually not the valid strings here. So to fix that, you can go ahead and put actual string or quotation marks there, the double quotation marks, and that should solve the problems. You can see here this is also not valid, and I will just do that. And of course this happened when I took this code first and I pasted it to PowerPoint. So PowerPoint actually does that kind of behavior, converting these valid quotation into what you saw there. But once it is solved, you can go back, file, and save again. I'm just gonna run this project once more, and then I'm gonna just put any as a password here, and I will select Eastern Cape once again, and still the console is opened here. I will say click me, and now you can see that we have user province EC, which is something more valid without any symbols around it. Okay, so that's one more time. I can change the name here, and I can say Jax M, and this time I will basically say something like Mosina, and then I'll say the password is, you know, just something here, and I'll say the province is Limpopo here. So if I go back and click here, you can see now we have province LP without any quotes around it. So that's it. Thank you for watching. In the next video, we are going to start talking about something more different, but I'm going to put it to a challenge. How can you create a div here on this page? So instead of you outputting or displaying these values here, why can't you just create a div right here on this page, and once the user clicks the button, all that information comes right on the page here? So that is the challenge I'm putting over to you. It's basically going to be the same solution that we have here written here, except that instead of putting this in the console, you'll have to create a div and inner HTML that information inside the div. And don't forget, you'll be required therefore to use the += operator to put everything in that particular div. Thank you for watching, and see you.